He found me in pieces, held me like I was all he ever wanted, promised to protect my heart forever. And just when I believed I was finally safe, he shattered me in ways even my scars couldn't explain. But then, I made sure his nights were never peaceful again. There's something terrifying about remembering who you were before the storm, before the heartbreak, before the betrayal, before the part of your soul you swore no one could touch gets torn to pieces by someone you trusted. And yet, that's where this story begins. With me, standing in the wreckage of my own life, a ghost of the woman I used to be, clinging to scraps of hope like they were oxygen. I wasn't just broken when he found me. I was ruined. Not in the dramatic, movie scene kind of way. No, my brokenness was quiet. It showed in the way I flinched when someone touched my shoulder, and how I'd go silent when asked a simple question. In the way I avoided eye contact with the world, as if looking too long into someone else's eyes might reveal how hollow mine had become. I existed. That's all. I woke up, went to work, came home, and repeated it until the days blurred together. People say, time heals. They never tell you what to do when time passes and nothing heals. When the wounds don't scab, they rot. So no, I wasn't looking to be saved. I had stopped believing anyone would care enough to try. But Aiden did. Or at least, that's what he made me believe. I still remember that night, the first time he saw me. It was raining. Not the soft, poetic kind of rain. It was cruel. The kind that soaked through your bones and reminded you just how cold this world could be. I had missed my bus. I was standing at the corner of some nameless street, hugging my coat tight, mascara smudged from tears I didn't even remember crying. And then he appeared, holding a black umbrella, wearing a calm smile like the storm hadn't touched him at all. Need some shelter? He asked, voice gentle, eyes warm. I hesitated. Every cell in my body screamed to run. I didn't talk to strangers. I didn't let anyone close. But something about him. It wasn't just the way he stood there, unbothered by my silence. It was the way he looked at me, not like I was pathetic, not like I was broken. He looked at me like I was worth knowing. Just that. Nothing more. Nothing less. And in a moment of weakness, or maybe desperation, I stepped under his umbrella. That was the beginning of it all. The beginning of the illusion. The beginning of him. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that the same man who offered me shelter in a storm would one day become the storm himself. Before him, there was nothing but silence and survival. I wasn't living, I was enduring. The kind of existence where each day was just something to get through, not something to feel. I had just clawed my way out of a marriage that nearly buried me alive. 8 years. 8 years of pretending I was happy, of swallowing my voice, of learning how to smile through bruises no one could see. People always ask why women stay. The truth? Sometimes, it's not fear that holds you there, it's exhaustion. You get so tired of fighting, of screaming into the void, of trying to prove you're not crazy when someone keeps rewriting your reality. You stop arguing. You stop defending yourself. You just fade. That's what I had become by the end of it, a faded version of the girl I used to be. He, my ex, Ryan, was the type of man who broke things just to feel powerful. He didn't hit me, not with fists. He hit me with silence, with control, with shame, with the subtle kind of manipulation that makes you question if you're the problem, if maybe you deserve the cold shoulder, the constant suspicion, the snide remarks. He convinced me no one else would love me. He made sure I knew how lucky I was that he put up with me. I finally left the day I caught him with another woman, not because he cheated, he always did, but because he looked me in the eye and smiled. There wasn't even guilt in it. Just victory. Like he'd broken me so thoroughly, I wouldn't have the strength to walk away. But I did. I packed one bag, emptied a joint account that was mostly mine anyway, and disappeared. I found a basement studio in a crumbling old building, moldy walls, rusty pipes, one tiny window. It was barely livable. But it was mine. And it was quiet. Too quiet, some nights. The kind of quiet that reminded me I had no one. My parents had died when I was 21. No siblings. No friends left after Ryan isolated me. I was completely alone. So I worked. Night shifts as a hotel cleaner. Graveyard hours. No guests. No interactions. Just silence and floors to mop. I wore headphones to block out my thoughts. I ate ramen on the floor. I cried in the shower because the hot water muffled the sound. But I kept going. One aching, hollow day at a time. And just when I thought that maybe this was all life had left for me, he appeared. He was light where everything in my life had been shadows. His name was Aiden West. The first time I saw him, really saw him, was at a used bookstore I wandered into on my day off. I was standing in the corner, flipping through a worn copy of The Bell Jar. I couldn't afford it, but I liked holding it. Reading Sylvia Plath's words felt like holding hands with someone else's pain. It made mine feel less lonely. He approached me gently. Tall. Soft features. That kind of confidence that isn't loud, just comfortable in its own skin. He asked if I liked poetry. I didn't answer at first. But then he said something I'll never forget. Sad words don't mean you're weak. Sometimes they just mean you felt things deeper than most. That broke something in me. Or maybe it connected something that had been numb for too long. We talked. Just a little. He offered to buy the book for me. I refused. The next day, I found the book slipped into my apartment door with a note that said, "Every broken heart deserves words that understand it." Aiden, it sounds small, maybe even creepy to some. But when no one has seen you in so long, even the smallest gesture feels like a sunrise. From there, it was slow. Purposefully slow. He didn't ask for too much. He didn't push. He just showed up. Again and again. Coffee dropped off during my breaks. Walks home in the early hours of the morning. Notes left in my locker. Little ways he reminded me I wasn't invisible anymore. And slowly, I let my guard down. Piece by piece, he picked up what others had left behind. And I began to believe again. Falling for Aiden wasn't like falling at all. It was like floating. Like after years of drowning, someone finally taught me how to breathe underwater. He never rushed me. He never demanded anything. He simply existed beside me, warm, steady, present. And that alone made me start believing in the possibility of a love that didn't hurt. He learned my triggers without me having to name them. He noticed how I flinched at loud voices, so he always spoke softly. He saw how I hesitated when someone touched me, so he asked for permission, always. He learned how I made tea when I was anxious, how I stared out the window when I was overwhelmed, how I slept facing the wall like I was trying to disappear. He made it all feel safe. And it wasn't just his words, it was the consistency. The way he always showed up. He never let more than a day go by without checking in. He called me his muse, his miracle, his calm. 3 months in, he invited me to move in with him. I was hesitant. I had learned the hard way that men only want you close when they want control. But Aiden? He assured me it was nothing like that. He wanted to protect me, to give me comfort, a soft place to land, finally. He said, "You've been strong for too long. Let someone be strong for you now." And God, how I wanted to believe that. His place was beautiful, not grand, but warm. Bookshelves lined with old paperbacks. Plants on every windowsill. A kitchen that always smelled like cinnamon and cloves. Art he said he painted himself. Soft, abstract pieces that looked like emotion and color. For the first time in years, I could sleep without fear of waking up to yelling or silence. For the first time, I laughed, like, really laughed. And when I cried, he held me like my pain was sacred. Like it mattered. He told me things like, "I'm not here to fix you. I just want to love you while you heal. You don't have to be perfect with me. Just real. You are not your past. You're everything you survived. And slowly, I gave him everything. My fears, my scars, my memories, my body, my trust. I let him see the version of me I kept locked away, the part no one else had earned. He told me he loved me after I had an anxiety attack in the middle of a grocery store. He said it while holding my shaking hands in a checkout line, his forehead pressed against mine. I don't love the version of you that's calm and easy, he said. I love all of you. Even this. I believed him. I believed every word. Because when someone meets you in your mess and says, I'm not going anywhere, you want so desperately for it to be true that you don't see the shadows forming behind their smile. I didn't know then that Aiden had his own secrets, that the warmth he gave so freely came with fine print, unread, unspoken, and fatal. Because the thing about men like him is, they don't destroy you all at once. They do it slowly, beautifully, soft enough that when you finally feel the pain, you've already handed them the knife. It didn't happen all at once. That's the most terrifying part. You don't go to sleep loved and wake up hated. The switch doesn't flip. It dims. Slowly. Quietly. Cruelly. It started with the silence. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful anymore. It was sharp. Heavy. Like the air was made of glass and one wrong word would shatter it. Aiden started coming home later. No explanation. No texts. Just vague excuses. Just work. Just tired. Don't start overthinking again. But I wasn't overthinking. I was remembering. I'd been here before, in that space between doubt and denial, where your gut is screaming, but your heart is too afraid to listen. He stopped leaving me notes. He stopped making tea. Stopped asking me how I was sleeping. And when I asked if something was wrong, he smiled, but it wasn't the smile I knew. It was colder, tighter, almost rehearsed. You're just being sensitive, he said. Like that was a flaw. Like feeling too much was a disease I needed to apologize for. At first, I told myself it was stress, work, life, something outside us. But then came the dismissals, the comments. You're too emotional. Why do you always assume the worst? You're acting like your ex again, paranoid. That one. That one cut deeper than the rest. Because he knew what those words meant to me. He knew the weight of that comparison. And still, he threw it like a grenade just to watch me scramble to prove him wrong. I started second-guessing everything, my words, my tone, my silence. I began apologizing for things I didn't do, censoring myself, shrinking again. And in the back of my mind, a voice whispered, it's happening again. You're losing yourself. Again. But I held on. I kept loving him. Because that's what we do when we believe someone saved us. We convince ourselves they wouldn't be the one to destroy us. I started noticing small things. Passwords changed. Locks rekeyed. Phone turned over when he was near me. He stopped looking me in the eyes when he said, I love you. And when he touched me, it felt mechanical. Like muscle memory, not desire. Then came the lies. Tiny, stupid lies. The kind you don't need to tell unless you're hiding something. One night, he said he was out with coworkers. But his jacket smelled like perfume I didn't own. His hands were warm, but his smile was cold. When I asked about it, he laughed. Laughed. Like my pain was a joke. God, you're exhausting, he muttered. And there it was. The real him. Peeking out for just a moment. Sharp, cruel, familiar. He looked at me the way Ryan used to, with pity. With disgust. You should really get help, he said one night, tossing his keys on the counter. This trauma obsession of yours is ruining everything. But the moment that finally shattered it all, the moment the mirror cracked and couldn't be repaired, was the day I found his second phone. Tucked beneath a stack of old books in his studio. I wouldn't have even found it if I hadn't been looking for a paintbrush. The screen lit up as I picked it up. A message. From a name I didn't recognize. Last night was amazing. She still has no idea, does she? I stared at that screen for what felt like hours. The rest of the messages were worse. So much worse. Photos, videos, messages mocking me, calling me damaged goods, laughing about how easy I was to manipulate, how he fixed me just to see how fast he could break me again. I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking. My chest burned. My ears rang. I had given this man everything. I had handed him the broken pieces of myself and thanked him for pretending to care. And he had used those pieces to build a weapon, just so he could shatter me again. He walked in while I was sitting on the floor, saw the phone in my hand. He didn't apologize. He didn't panic. He just sighed. I was wondering when you'd find that. That was all he said. No remorse. No fear. Just boredom. Like my heartbreak was an inconvenience. And then he walked into the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and said, "You really thought someone like me could love someone like you?" That was it. That was the moment the last ember of love inside me turned to ash. But beneath the grief, beneath the horror, something darker bloomed. Not rage. Not despair. Purpose. Because this time, I wasn't going to cry in the shower. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to disappear. This time, I was going to make him bleed. They say grief has 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But they forgot the 6th one: revenge. When Aiden walked away from me that night, smirking into his whiskey like I was some silly girl who'd finally woken up to a joke only he was in on, I didn't break. I calcified. Something inside me, something tender and fragile, curled in on itself and died. And from its ashes rose something colder. Something surgical. He thought he knew the extent of my damage. He thought he had mapped every wound, every scar. But what he didn't know was that women like me don't stay shattered forever. We sharpen. That night, I didn't cry. I watched him sleep, peaceful, unbothered, like he hadn't just gutted me with the truth. And I realized something terrifying. He wanted this. He planned this. This wasn't a mistake or a weakness. It was a game. And I was just another broken girl he could mold, play with, and discard. And now, he was bored. So he stopped pretending. But I wasn't finished. He thought the worst thing I could do was leave. He was wrong. The worst thing I could do was stay, pretend, watch, learn. So I did. For the next 2 weeks, I played my role flawlessly. I told him I forgave him, that I understood, that maybe I was too damaged after all, and I'd pushed him away. I made myself small again, just enough to soothe his ego. And oh, how he loved that. That power. That control. He thought he'd won. While he slept, I read everything in that second phone. Screenshotted it. Forwarded it to a secret email I'd made. Names. Photos. Conversations. He didn't just cheat, he hunted. Broken women. Isolated women. Women rebuilding their lives. He called it rescuing. But it was never about saving. It was about conquering. He'd done it before me. And from the sound of it, he was already doing it again. But Aiden's fatal flaw? He thought he was untouchable. Smart, careful, charming. But he forgot. No one knows your soft spots better than the woman who trusted you. He gave me access to everything. His art studio. His finances. His passwords. His inner circle. Because who would ever suspect me, right? The broken, grateful little girlfriend he'd put back together? So I waited. I smiled. I cooked his favorite meals. I moaned when he touched me. I let him think I was still his. But inside, I was counting days, building plans, sharpening knives, not literal ones, no. Worse, legal ones, social ones. digital ones. And when I struck, it would be slow. I would not scream. I would not rage. I would not cry. I would end him the way he ended me. Quietly, thoroughly, forever. Because monsters like Aiden don't just need to be exposed. They need to be ruined. Revenge, if done right, doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't show up in a burst of rage. It unfolds, slowly, methodically, like the final act of a play the villain never saw coming. And I made sure mine was flawless. Step 1. The mask must stay on. I gave Aiden nothing to suspect. I laughed at his jokes. I kissed him good morning. I lay in bed beside him at night and whispered, I love you, while imagining the moment he'd finally understand who I really was underneath all the softness he thought he molded. He thought he broke me. But really, he built his own executioner. Step 2. Find the cracks. Aiden painted himself as this altruistic artist. A mentor. A healer of broken women. He donated to mental health charities, held art therapy workshops, posted soul-searching captions on Instagram. But behind the scenes, he had records, receipts, screenshots of women's traumas, photos he never had permission to take, conversations with other men, laughing at the emotional damage they caused. To the world, he was a gentle savior. But to those of us behind closed doors, he was a puppeteer, pulling strings, watching us dance, then cutting us loose. He called it studying trauma. I called it evidence. I gathered it all. Emails, messages, GPS pings. Even the voice recordings I'd started secretly saving, the ones where he gaslit me, mocked my pain, admitted things half drunk, never imagining I'd have the nerve to keep them. Oh, but I did. Step 3. Turn his heaven into hell. I began with his world. Not his body. Not his home. Not even his heart. His reputation. I sent anonymous packages to every gallery he was scheduled to show in. Emails with attachments labeled, for your protection, read before associating with this artist. I posted anonymously in survivor forums, with proof. Dozens of women reached out. One had been hospitalized. Another had lost custody of her child because of the mental breakdown he helped trigger. All of us had believed the same lie. That he found us, healed us, and loved us. But really, he just studied us like experiments. Cataloged our weaknesses like a twisted collector. Together, we built a file, a digital case so damning it couldn't be ignored. Step 4. Let him feel it. It started small. A gallery canceled his exhibition. Then another. He blamed haters. Said it was jealousy. Said I was still obsessed with him when I stopped sleeping in his bed one night. You used to be grateful, he snarled. And I smiled, because for the first time, he sounded scared. Then came the messages. His sponsors pulling out. His mentorship program suspended. His accounts under review. His name popping up in private artist group chats, blacklisted. I watched it all unfold from the same living room couch where he used to kiss my forehead and call me his masterpiece. Now, he couldn't even get a coffee shop to hang his art. Step 5. The personal touch. And then, I ended us. Publicly. I posted everything. Not under my name, but as a survivor. With evidence. With stories from the other women. With timelines and names redacted to protect us, but the pattern painfully clear. The world saw him. Finally. Not as a savior. Not as a healer. But as a serial emotional predator. Charming, manipulative, dangerous. He tried to fight back. Of course he did. But you can't erase truth once it's in the bloodstream of the internet. You can't unring a bell. I moved out without warning. Left nothing behind, not a note, not a tear. Only a single message, taped to his mirror. You taught me how to break again. So I taught you what it feels like to fall and never hit the ground. After I left, I didn't look back. Not once. Not when I saw his name trending for all the wrong reasons. Not when I heard he'd locked himself in his apartment for days. Not when a mutual friend messaged me. He's losing everything. Are you happy now? I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about happiness. It was about justice. I built a new life. Quietly. Carefully. I got therapy, real therapy. Not the illusion of healing Aiden pretended to offer. I worked again. Smiled again. Learned how to take up space without apologizing for it. But even healed wounds ache in the rain. And some nights, when the house was too quiet, I'd remember. Not the man. The lie. The beautiful, exquisite lie I wanted him to be. But pain has a funny way of turning into power when you refuse to be its prisoner. I thought I'd close that chapter forever. But the twist. It didn't come from Aiden. It came from someone else. 3 months later, I received an email. No subject line. No name. Just a single sentence. He did the same thing to my sister. But she didn't survive it. I stared at the screen. I reread it a dozen times. Then came another. She met him in one of his workshops. She was struggling. She thought he saw her. He used her. Ghosted her. She spiraled. We buried her last year. I felt like the air had left the room. Everything I'd done, every ounce of vengeance I'd served, I thought it had been personal. But it was bigger than me. He hadn't just broken hearts. He'd ended lives. And then came the final blow. We're filing a lawsuit. Class action. Your story helped us find each other. We'd like to include your name. If you're ready to turn survival into change. I closed my laptop, sat in the dark, and realized. I thought my revenge was complete when I destroyed his world. But this was the real justice. Because now, his name wouldn't just disappear from art shows or sponsorships. It would be carved into court records, into public history. He wouldn't just be ruined. He'd be remembered, not as the man who rescued broken women, but as the predator who created them. And in the end, he held me when I was broken, promised to stay, used my pain to break me again. But then I made sure he'd never heal from what I did next. Because some scars aren't meant to fade. Some monsters aren't meant to hide. And some women aren't meant to stay victims forever.